We're the Mario Brothers, and plumbing's a game. We're not like the others who get all the fame. When you think it's in trouble, you could call us on the double. We're faster than the others, you'll be hooked. Peaches, 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 peaches.
But hello everyone, welcome back to a brand new video today on the channel. I know it's been a while, I haven't posted in a while, I was on vacation. I didn't get a chance to review this movie right when it came up, but I still wanted to at least talk about it a little bit and actually give it a little bit more of a bigger video, because this is a movie, because obviously you know what I'm going to talk about if you've seen the title and you see what I'm friggin' wearing. But this movie has been turning a lot of heads lately for good and bad reasons. It's become the highest grossing video game movie of all time. I believe it just passed $700 million, which, congratulations, I totally think it deserved it. But I wanted to talk about it because, what are these reviews? This is such a polarizing and weird movie to people. Some people really like this movie, some people really hate this movie, like with every fiber in their being kind of thing. And I don't get it. Is this movie as bad as the critics are saying? No, absolutely not. Is this movie as good as the audiences are saying? No. It's close, but no. The critic score is really low, considering it used to be like 46. I believe it's went up now. It's about like a 58 right now, but it's still really low, and it feels like critics are going very, very harsh on this movie. So I kind of wanted to make my review kind of almost like commenting on these reviews and seeing if I agree with them or I don't agree with them, because I think that the movie is fine. I actually think the movie's pretty good. I don't think that it is nearly as bad as what the critics are saying, but I also don't think it's as good as what the audiences are saying, because the movie does have very clear flaws, but I don't think it takes it down a notch to a point where it's an unwatchable movie or even just a not great movie. I still think it's a good movie. I'm actually going to be doing something a little bit different for this review. I'm going to talk about the negatives I have with this movie first, because I'm going to say this right now, the positives for this movie are pretty self-explanatory. If you've seen a review for this movie, most people say pretty much the same thing in terms of positives, so I'm going to leave that till the end. I'm going to leave that for my last point, because it's not nearly as interesting as I think the negatives for this movie are, which the negatives do vary from person to person, but for critics, it's mostly the same. But I do want to say, for the most part, is that I think these critic reviews are mostly correct. Some of them have very good points, and I do agree with some of these points, but I also don't think that every point they make is the best point. I think there are a lot of very clear flaws in their arguments, and I just wanted to kind of talk about it. Now, the first point I make when I run into my negatives, I do want to cover something. I think that this movie was not made with the intention of appealing to critics. This movie was not meant to turn heads in terms of its plot, its story. That's not what this movie was made for. And I'm not saying that as an excuse, because I know a lot of people are going to say, well, that's not an excuse for making a bad movie. And yes, that is very, very true. And I actually do acknowledge most of these negative comments that they give, but they are going really harsh on this movie for no reason, I think. This movie, very simply put, is made for fans of the games and small children. People who walk into this movie expecting a big Lord of the Rings style movie with just all these complex plot points, you're gonna be mistaken and you're gonna be disappointed. But at the same time, what were you expecting? This is a Mario movie. Were you expecting this big grand plot? That doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you put yourself into that mindset? And that's just my opinion, but come on, guys. And I actually kind of wanted to cover that first thing, because the plot for this movie is very simple. I'm going to kind of spoil it a little bit. It's not much of a spoiler. This movie is literally just ripped straight out of the games. If you've played any Mario game, you know what they're about. You have a very simple objective in those games. And it's very simply, you are Mario or Luigi, and you're going to save Peach, Mario, or some random fairies in that one game that I forget what it was. But you need to understand is that these games have always been super simple. So I don't really understand why people are complaining about a simple plot. It doesn't really make sense to me. I can kind of get it from a film point of view, but at the same time, it's so in line with the characters from the games, and it's faithful in that aspect, and that's what I actually really like about this movie. but you're complaining about it because it's not advanced enough, it's not complex, but that's what the original game is. The original game is simple for a reason, so it makes sense for them trying to make the movie as simple and close to the games as possible. And you know what? I think they did a good job. It's not great, like I said, like it's not super complex, it's not thought-provoking, but I didn't hate it. Like, it made sense of why they went so simple. I didn't hate it. Some of the motivations for the characters, especially Bowser, very much in line for what I would expect, especially after playing the game. It makes sense. So I don't really understand why people are complaining about it, and I don't really want to talk about it because I think it's kind of a stupid argument. Like, it's Mario, okay? Like I said, it's Mario. But some of my actual cons I want to say about this movie, starting off with my first one, is that this movie is so fast. Like, this movie clocks in at a solid 1 hour, 30 minutes, and I think it easily could have been given another half an hour. There's so much to do in this world, and they barely scratch the surface. They move so quickly from, if it's landscapes, or just in general the plot, moves forward so quickly. The first 20 minutes are pretty great in terms of pacing. They actually feel really great. They establish a lot of the characters, Mario's backstory, and that's all done very well. But as soon as they enter the Mushroom Kingdom, things just go a million miles a minute for no reason. It is so quick, and I imagine they did this just because they wanted to get from point A to point B, but like, you'd never get any time to truly develop your characters, or you don't get time to explore this world, explore the setting, and take advantage of what a great world we're in, because they don't really do anything with it. There's a couple moments that they do some stuff, but it's not nearly enough to actually make an impact. And they could have done so much more in that aspect, and it would have made it so much better. And I also want to say this in terms of a con. There is literally no character development in this movie. There is none. There are slight tidbits that are thrown in. Mario is kind of a down-on-his-luck loser. Everyone's doubting him and his family, and he's scared because he's going to drag his brother through the mud, and everyone's like, oh, you know, it's bad enough that you're putting yourself in this position where you're failing, because dreams are difficult. That's kind of what the point of the movie is that dreams are extremely difficult, they don't always come true, and it's very much, that's Mario's whole theme, is that he's trying to prove himself, but in doing so, he's also putting Luigi in jeopardy, who's also there with him, because he's a good brother. That is the only form of character development we get through this entire movie. No one changes, no one seems to learn anything. It's very much just, they come in this way, and Mario learns a little bit, maybe Luigi learns a little bit too, and everyone else stays exactly the same. Which is not good from a film point of view, because that's kind of the point. We kind of want to see our characters go through struggles and certain scenarios so they grow as people and they grow as characters in general. That's kind of the whole point of a movie, and it doesn't do that. You don't get any of that. But surprisingly, I actually don't think it's too big of an issue, because as I'm going to say, this movie's super fun and really enjoyable in other aspects, so I can kind of look past that. And not to mention, in the original Mario games, once again, they don't have a whole lot of character development. It's very simple, so I can excuse that, but it is noticeable from a movie point of view, and I do want to say something about it, because it'd be a lie not to. But it's weird enough, because they do give certain backstory to certain characters, and they do kind of give like almost little teases to what they could have done with their characters. Like an example is Peach. Peach very much in this movie is the perfect warrior princess sort of thing. They very much make her this very capable person, which a lot of people had issues with. Why? I don't really understand that argument of why people didn't want her to be competent. It's almost like they wanted her to be a damsel in distress. And I can kind of get that to an extent. I see it more like people didn't want her to be almost unbearingly annoying and no, just annoying because she could do everything. She was so capable and so confident that she was basically just the perfect character. And they don't do that in this movie. She has flaws, but they don't explore those flaws. I think a really cool idea in this movie could have been her relationship with her citizens and all the Toads, because in the movie they very clearly established that she is the only one protecting them, as Toads are pretty passive and they don't actually want to fight anyone. So they could have done a very interesting thing where the Toads raised her from birth, so she feels responsibility for protecting them all when she's in her prime now, but having to realize that things will go wrong and she's going to try her best to protect them, but there is that insecurity that maybe she can't protect them and she'll fail, and that will cause her everything. And I think that could have been an interesting thing they played with her character, but once again, They don't do that. Another character is Toad. They could have done something, as the Toad we follow in this movie is the more brave Toad. He's the bravest of them all, since they're all kind of passive, and they, once again, could have went a little bit more into his character and how he acts all big and tough, but he's actually not. He's still the same old Toad, but he's trying to push himself and be a more confident person. That could have been something that could have been good, and it would have actually benefited the characters, but they don't do that, once again, because they like to cut corners, I feel, in this movie, and they just kind of assume that you already know what the characters are all about. And I'd say that's fair to an extent, but you still could have thrown a little bit at the audience. We're not babies, you know? Even little kids, they would have been able to understand stuff like that, and it would just give the movie more, and it would have gave the characters more. And oh my god, the pop songs in this movie. They have select licensed music that they use in this movie. It happens a couple times where they'll use it, and every single time they use a pop song, it doesn't work. Half the time they just feel super out of nowhere and super out of place as well. Like they play Take On Me in one scene, but it doesn't make any sense to why they actually used that song. Like, it doesn't even fit the mood of actually what's going on, and it could have been replaced with an actual original theme from the games, and it would have been 10 times better. But they chose to make a licensed song and put it in there for literally no reason, and it took me out of the movie at points. I really hated that. I would say that the biggest and most major flaws about this movie, like I said, are the story parts. Everything else about this movie, I found myself really liking, which is gonna move me directly into the pros, which, can I say, this movie is absolutely fucking gorgeous. I loved the look of this movie so much. It doesn't go for anything like spider level craziness, but it's just a super solid animated movie that looks fantastic. And the Easter eggs. The one way to describe this movie to you, I think, is calling this movie a giant Nintendo love letter wrapped up into a box and given to every single person in the theater. It was wonderful. I was looking in the background constantly, seeing all these little Easter eggs and just all the little references. And I know everyone's gonna say, oh, it's just a reference to the movie, I don't wanna go watch it. But it doesn't come off as forced at all. It's just sort of in the background for fans. If you look, it's like, oh, I recognize that. Or sometimes they'll have a little bit more of an obvious one, and you kind of just smile and you go, oh, I know that, but it's not forced. They don't like make a huge deal out of it. They don't like zoom the camera and like, look at this, do you recognize it? Like, no, they don't do that. It's just sort of in the background, and that's the proper way to do Easter eggs. And I thought it added a lot to this movie, and it was genuinely impressive to how much lore they fit into this movie. And another thing, the action sequences in this movie are fantastic, especially one scene where they're on Rainbow Road in Mario Karts. That scene, I literally haven't been able to stop thinking about that scene. It is so good, it is so much fun, and it's all really done in terms of the choreography. I was genuinely really impressed by how fluid every fight scene was, and how much I was just really enjoying it. There's so many good scenes in this movie, especially another scene is the Donkey Kong fight scene with Mario. It's fantastic. And another thing people were really scared about in this movie was the voice cast. That was by far the biggest thing that everyone was terrified for. Chris Pratt as Mario, Charlie Day as Luigi, Jack Black as Bowser. Everyone actually kind of thought Jack Black was going to be amazing regardless, so I'm just going to disregard that.
Another line, I'll make you mine.
Fucking delicious.
But the voice cast in this movie genuinely do a really good job. I don't think there was like a super standout except Jack Black as Bowser. He's having so much fun, and you can just so clearly tell, and I loved him in this movie. Like, I absolutely adored Bowser's performance. Jack Black's performance as Bowser. It was wonderful. And I'll even say this, Chris Pratt was good. I'm tired of people saying that he was bad. He's not bad. He's very good. They establish why he talks the way he does in this movie, and he doesn't have like the overblown Italian accent from the games. And the one that we're all accustomed to, they do explain why he doesn't talk like that, and it works. It really does work in this movie. And everyone does a pretty great job, except for, I would say, maybe Seth Rogen. It's literally just Seth Rogen's voice. He doesn't try and make a voice. And there are actually interviews saying that when he auditioned for the part, or when he got the part, he told them, I'm not going to even try to do a voice because I can't do them. So if you're hiring me, you're hiring me. You're hiring my voice, which I think is pretty funny. And it's kind of interesting how they actually still went through with it. But he was fine. After a while, I got used to it. But just note that he is definitely the lower in terms of voice cast in this movie. I definitely didn't enjoy his performance as much. And another thing too that I thought was incredible was the music. The music in this movie was fan-fucking-tastic, and I'm not talking about the licensed music. The original music where they sort of remix classic Mario tracks was awesome. I was recognizing so many of them, and they just gave me goosebumps. And it just had the biggest smile on my face, especially the last half of the movie and the big finale fight sequence when the Superstar theme comes on where they remix it. It's perfect. It's so good. I loved so many moments like that. And even when they use classic themes from Mario's history, like the DK rap, I was just ear to ear, I was just smiling my guts off. I loved it so much. It was so much fun, and it put such a big smile on my face. And that's how I just described this movie. It's just fun. This movie is just meant to be sat down, you turn your brain off a little bit. If you're a Mario fan, it's going to be even better for you, but you can just sit down and enjoy it. Don't worry about plot. It doesn't have a whole lot of that. It doesn't have a whole lot of character development. But from a sheer point of view of fun and enjoyability and just entertainment value in general, this movie I would say is easily a 9 out of 10 in that department. I don't think it's a 9 out of 10 in general because in terms of story and it actually being like a movie, I'd say it's probably like a 6 or a 5, around a 6 or a 5. But if I'm to take both of these into consideration for my final review of this movie and what I actually think this movie is, for me at least, you might have different opinions, everyone does, but I'm going to say for this movie, I'm going to give this movie a solid 8 out of 10. I had a really great time. I really want to go see it again. I'm shocked. I had so much fun with this movie and I don't understand why the critics are hating it, but you're your own person. You are gonna decide if you like something or you dislike something. So I'm gonna say it right now. If you wanna go see this movie, go see it. I had a great time with it and I think you will too. But anyways, if you like this video, please like and subscribe down below for more content on the channel coming pretty damn soon. And I'll see y'all in the next one. See ya.